Welcome to CineCynics. I'm Craig, and Mark couldn't be here today because he's sick. Quote unquote, I killed him. So first up on Dailies is the StarLord / Peter Quill character has finally been cast, and it's going to be Chris Pratt. You might recognize him from Parks and Recreation and also the last sequence in Zero Dark 30. I'm really excited about this casting choice. I like how they're picking slightly unknown characters. I think Marvel Studios is doing a brilliant job at casting their films, and I'm looking really forward to this. And some recent news has just come out that J.J. Abrams has been talking to Gabe Newell to make a Half-Life or a Portal movie, or Half-Life and a Portal movie, which would be amazing. I have been a fan of the Half-Life series for so long, and I've been wanting a Half-Life movie for years, since Half-Life 2 came out. And this is super exciting news, especially as a fanboy, and I think J.J. Abrams is going to do an amazing job with Star Wars, and if this comes about, he'll do an amazing job with Half-Life. So no regular format today, but I am going to do an Oscar wrap-up rapid-fire review of every Best Picture nomination that we haven't done on the show. So let's get to it. Silver Linings Playbook, directed and written by David O. Russell, stars Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, Robert De Niro, Jackie Weaver, and Chris Tucker. Pat is a bipolar man played by Bradley Cooper, who forms an unlikely relationship with Tiffany, played by Jennifer Lawrence, who has her own issues. The direction in this movie was very solid. Great camera movement, great composition, just a very good eye for creating drama and comedy and romance, which all three of these genres are combined in this one movie. Another thing that's great about this movie is the writing. It did a great job at mixing the comedy and the drama and the romance. It was very snappy, quick, very funny, very serious when it had to be in certain conversations, and overall, it was just a very well-written movie. And let's not forget about the acting. Everybody in this movie was great. Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, Jackie Weaver, Robert De Niro, and even Chris Tucker, of all people, was great in this movie. I was expecting Jackie Chan to come out of nowhere and be like, oh no! We're going on another rush hour! Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence had great chemistry on screen, and De Niro and Cooper had a great chemistry as father and son. They were believable. And I love it when a movie can make me laugh out loud and cry at the same time, or in a span of 10 minutes. It's like, how the hell did this just happen? And it just gets super serious, and there's this moment in the movie where you're laughing, and then all of a sudden, shit just gets real. And I think a movie that can do that is an amazing feat. Who says mental illness can't be funny? So it had a great story, great writing, great characters, just great acting. Everything about this movie was great. Is it gonna win? Probably not, because it has the comedy element. But you know what? It's definitely an Oscar-worthy movie, and I definitely recommend you go see it. Argo, directed by Ben Affleck, stars Ben Affleck, Alan Arkin, John Goodman, and Bryan Cranston. Ben Affleck plays Tony Mendez, a CIA operative sent to Iran to exfiltrate 6 American diplomats as a Canadian film crew. One thing that really struck me was that this is based off of a declassified CIA operation, and this is what added to the whole tension of the entire movie. And it was solid acting and directing all around. Ben Affleck is getting better and better on screen and off screen as he gets older, kind of like Robert Redford or even Clint Eastwood. One thing about this movie is that you know the ending, and if you read anything about history, you know what happens to these people, but you still feel a sense of suspense and tension throughout the whole entire movie because it was so well acted and it was so well directed, and the writing was great. Alan Arkin was hilarious as the producer for this fake film. John Goodman was great. Bryan Cranston was one of his colleagues in the CIA. He was amazing, and I don't think that Alan Arkin should have gotten the nomination. I really think Bryan Cranston should have gotten the nomination. I loved Alan Arkin's character. He was great, and he was very sarcastic and awesome, actually, but I really think Bryan Cranston deserved a nomination. This was definitely a great suspense thriller of last year, and I definitely recommend you go see this movie just to catch up on your Oscar films. Les Miserables, directed by Tom Hooper, stars Hugh Jackman, Anne Hathaway, Russell Crowe, and Amanda Seyfried. Hugh Jackman plays Jean Valjean, a recently freed prisoner who breaks parole and is hunted by Inspector Javert, played by Russell Crowe. Valjean finds Cosette, the daughter of a factory worker named Fantine, who then raises her as his own. So I went into this movie not expecting that I would like it, because I'm not a big fan of musicals, but I have to say, I loved this movie, and I can't believe I'm saying that I love this movie, because I hate musicals. The directing of this movie was amazing, and the sets were expansive, and I mean sets. These weren't on location, they were sets. Amazingly built sets, beautiful. I love built sets. I love practical sets, it's one of my favorite things about film. And Tom Hooper did an amazing job of shooting all the action in the French alleyways and all the people and the hustle and bustle of the French city. It was a beautiful thing to see. And I love how he uses the wide-angle lenses and does a close-up of people's faces and all these like long-running shots of people. And I love how he does that in his movies. He did it a lot in King's Speech, and I love that movie too. The acting was amazing. Hugh Jackman was brilliant in this movie. And I love that he brought the acting element into the role as well as the singing. And he is a very prominent Broadway singer and actor. So this was like second nature to this guy. He knows what he's doing on screen. And this is due in part to the singing on set. They had an earpiece in their ear, a guy playing piano, and it was so dynamic because they could act, then they could go into their singing, then they could act a little bit more and speak, and it just made the musical element to this movie that much better for it. And I love the music in this movie. I'm actually humming it all the time. It's very catchy and beautiful at moments and very sad and somber at others. As a musical, I really like this movie. But as a film, and because of the dynamic acting and singing, I love this film. Because it was such a huge surprise, and because I like the music so much, and the acting was wonderful, the story obviously was great. It's an old story that lives on for years and years. I would definitely recommend you go see it. Beasts of the Southern Wild, directed by Ben Zeitlin, stars Quavonzane Wallace as a young girl named Hush Puppy, living in the bayou, dealing with her angry father, flooding, and ancient oryx, which are just big, giant warthog things. One thing about this movie is very apparent. It's a very well-made movie. It was very well put together. The cinematography was interesting. Used a very gritty, shaky cam, which I guess, with the nature of the movie and the story, fit very well with how it was shot. And the acting from this little girl was amazing. I have not seen child acting that good since probably Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense. I'm just putting it out there. This little girl is amazing. I can't believe that she is nominated for an Oscar because she's so young, but she was just so damn good. For me, overall, this movie was kind of weird. I really didn't understand some of the story elements, or some of the story elements that were actually put into the movie were very short and really had no bearing on the rest of the movie. It was kind of surreal. Very David Lynchian in that aspect. It was very David Lynch surrealness. Obviously, this movie was very metaphorical. Just overall, the only thing that stood out for me in this movie was the performance by Quavonzane Wallace. I don't think it deserves a Best Picture nomination. I just thought it was a very weird movie. It didn't feel like a film to me. Obviously, it's nominated for an Oscar, but I don't think this was a very good nomination. I think it was just a bunch of blowharded old men who were like, well, this is so artsy-fartsy that we have to nominate it. And I think that's the wrong idea to go in for a movie. It has to be entertaining as well as being a great film in and of itself. I definitely wouldn't recommend you go see this movie. Amour, directed by Michael Haneke, stars Jean-Louis Trintignant and Emmanuel Riva, about the struggle between George and Anne after Anne has a stroke. Alright, this movie is very French. And when I say French, I mean oui, very frickin' French. I hated the direction in this movie. It was long shot after long shot after long shot, and I really didn't see any switching between different angles. Like, there was no dynamic composition of any sort. it was all static, static, static. There's a way you can do static shots, but you can't just sit there for 2 minutes looking at this guy trying to get a pigeon that got into his house from the window. I mean, it's ridiculous. Or 2 minutes of a guy just cutting up flowers into the sink. I don't understand why. It's really just long. It's so long, and it's a 2-hour movie. It felt so much longer than that. And that's poor filmmaking. If you can't make me feel like a movie just zips on right by, you're a terrible filmmaker. And one thing I don't understand is that this is a foreign film. There is a separate category in the Oscars for Best Foreign Film. Why wasn't it just put in there? There were other movies out this year that could have been put into the Best Picture nomination, and I don't understand why they weren't. One thing that redeems this movie is the acting. It was very, very well acted. And this old couple that are well into their 80s having to deal with a certain situation of a stroke is very, very powerful. But it also added moments where you didn't want to see, or moments that didn't make sense, that had to deal with it, and it was boring all over the place. And this movie, for the subject matter, was so boring. Yes, I know, a couple dealing with a stroke, but seriously, I was uninterested for the whole movie. I wanted to see what would happen after the stroke. It was getting very interesting with the characters and everything, and then it just got long and boring, and it was a chore to watch this movie. I know this movie was nominated for an Oscar, but I definitely recommend you don't see this movie. And it's definitely, I don't think it's gonna win. That's for damn sure. This was just too boring of a movie. And if you liked CineCynics, rate, comment, and subscribe. And come back every Saturday for more movie news, recommendations, and reviews. Make sure you follow our Twitter, our Facebook, and our Blogspot for our written reviews. And my question to you is, where can I store a body?